I ask just one thing from my favorite team this all season, and that's to make Justin Fields a Pittsburgh Steeler. The Steelers right now are in a position to develop a quarterback. But 2 years ago when Ben Roethlisberger retired, they frankly were not. Today, the Steelers, honestly to me, are a quarterback away from winning a playoff game. Whereas 2 years ago, they had a handful of needs at more positions. This all season, they've started off by reporting, and I don't believe this is true, they're going to run it back next year with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, and they're not going to look to add in an available quarterback, like most notably Fields. And there's a possibility the biggest move they're going to make at the quarterback position will be signing Ryan Tannehill to compete with Kenny Pickett, despite Tannehill being at the final stage of his NFL career. I think Omar Khan is really just throwing a smokescreen here, because Kenny Pickett has not done enough to be given a third year as a starting quarterback, especially if your goal is to win a Super Bowl. What it really comes down to is not whether or not Kenny Pickett's been done wrong, because he has. It's whether or not you're wasting your time and cementing yourself in purgatory by committing to a player who clearly does not raise your ceiling. He's not even accurate. He doesn't have good pocket presence. Everything that Kenny Pickett has shown us is that he's closer to Zach Wilson than basically any other young quarterback from this last draft. And if the Steelers are committing to that for a third year, you're not going anywhere. You know, as a fan, I grew up watching Ben Roethlisberger. In 2014, he had a 2-game stretch where he threw 12 TDs versus the Ravens and Colts in back-to-back weeks. Kenny Pickett has 13 in 25 games played. One more touchdown and 12 times the amount of games. This is why I say to myself, the Steelers need to make a move at quarterback. But the question is Justin Fields going to move the needle? Is he worth giving up draft compensation for? And the answer to me is yes. Justin Fields is worth giving up draft capital for. Now, how much, you may ask? I would offer a second-round pick next year. And if the Bears would have played hardball, I would give them a second-round pick this year and a fourth-round pick down the line. Take it or leave it. You're not getting a first-round pick for a player who is going the fourth year of his rookie contract. But what does make Justin Fields worth the Steelers' time? What makes him such a big upgrade over Pickett? I have 3 big reasons. And number one is how he impacts the run game. Chicago has had the first and second best rushing attacks in football the last 2 years and rushing yards gained. And that is partly because they have very good backs, David Montgomery, Kelly Herbert, and Roschon Johnson. But the main reason why is Justin Fields and the force multiplier he is creating advantages for his teammates. For the Steelers week 1, could you imagine Jaylen Warren and Justin Fields together? Because over the last 3 years, they've tried to build an identity around the ground game, but they have not been consistent for 17 weeks. Justin Fields would not just level up the run game and make it an elite one to me, but he would make it an elite one for 17 weeks. The other part of Justin Fields that I think is a bit underappreciated is the simple fact that he's really only going in year 3. While he did not take a step forward in his third NFL season, I felt like his rookie year was a lost cause. Working with Matt Nagy, thrown into the fire for a coaching staff in the hot seat, he didn't have any weapons to work with. Allen Robinson was washed. Darnell Mooney was in his second season and really was just building chemistry with Fields, with the two of them probably not getting a whole lot of time to work together in training camp. Then you look at that offensive line. It was not very good. And Fields still showed a lot of highs alongside the lows in the poor production. That, to me, this last year was really just his second year in the NFL, much like Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I don't look at him traditionally in the same way would many other quarterbacks going year 4. And what I mean by that is that Justin Fields has more time to grow, and saying he's not going to break out based off of this last year is a bit unfair. In Pittsburgh, Fields would have the best weapons of his career without a doubt. George Pickens, Deontay, Pat Freiermuth, who's healthy and was blocking the end of the season, and then you incorporate the running backs with an offensive coordinator who's not abysmal, but is pretty good. Until Arthur Smith gives me reason to believe otherwise, he's a good OC. And that even was the case his first year and a half, 2 years in Atlanta. And to build off of the Smith point, he thrived with Marcus Mariota, who lost all of his confidence as a quarterback, yet still, the Falcons were above average in points per game, won 9 games, and Mariota was maximized as a rusher. But when you watched him play, he really looked like a broken quarterback, and quite frankly, just couldn't be saved. You then replace him with Justin Fields, who has a lot of confidence with every single trait and an elite skill in rushing, just being able to make plays when nothing is there. I think Arthur Smith could get back to where he was at in Tennessee. If you give Justin Fields the best weapons of his career, you give him the best offensive mind and play designer, but then you also give him the best defense he's ever had, quite clearly, He's going to have the supporting cast to win a lot of games. His division's going to be tough. But then the last piece of the puzzle to me is the fact that Pittsburgh can pretty quickly overhaul their offensive line and make it just as good, if not better, than the Bears right now. The Steelers have their guard set. They believe they have their left tackle of the future in Broderick Jones. Give him some time to develop. And then you add in a center in the draft, someone in the second round like Van Pratt out of Georgia, or even Frazier out of West Virginia. And then you add in a tackle in the first round. And Pittsburgh pretty quickly can have one of the better O-lines to protect Fields. Now that leads me to the third thing with Fields, the main appeal, beyond his rushing ability and the playmaking out of structure. The time, the ability for him to continue growing, because he is still just 24 years old. Oh, Fields just turned 25 yesterday, so I was close. The third thing to me is the fact that Justin Fields has an absolute cannon of an arm, and he's shown some passing growth in his ball placement and accuracy, even if it's not fully evident in the production. What I believe with Fields, which is holding him back most, is his timing, being able to play on time and on structure when his first and second read's there, not having to overanalyze or overprocess, because that's what's held back Fields and really led to his worst moments and decisions. But to me, that is something which can be coached. And with Arthur Smith being a better offensive mind than Luke Getsy and Matt Nagy, I believe in Pittsburgh, he would continue to improve in those rough edges of his game. Would he be a top 10 quarterback if he developed his accuracy from 61 to 66%? Maybe. I think that's a conversation to be had. But the bigger part of it is, could Justin Fields lead the Steelers to a playoff win by leveling up their offense? The answer to me is undoubtedly yes. And it's really just because of the fact he would have the best supporting cast, which would amplify what he already does well, and would help him refine his game to be a more complete starting quarterback. I don't think Justin Fields will ever be a superstar because he doesn't really have those traits which a great quarterback has to be born with, like elite pocket presence. But I do know that more than anything, Kenny Pickett is an example to me of the sunk cost fallacy. Because we invest the 20th overall pick in him, and we want to prove he's not a bust, we're going to give him every opportunity to develop until the wheels fall off like they did in New York with Zach Wilson, which is even a bit different because he wasn't supposed to be the starting quarterback coming in this year. It's just better for Pittsburgh to acknowledge it probably was never the right pick over Trent McDuffie, and it's okay to move on to somebody who was an elite draft prospect. And if you can get your hands on Justin Fields, you're probably going to get the most out of him. I did not feel like Chicago did at any point due to their coaching and personnel. But in Pittsburgh, a lot of it has come together over the last year and a half. And with another good draft, this could be a contender pretty darn quickly. You get Fields in the last year of his rookie deal, and then his fifth-year option worth $23 million. That's why I say to myself, Pittsburgh should look forward and think bigger. It's why I believe they're not actually sold on what they currently have. They're just trying to throw a smokescreen like many other teams.